Okay, this is my second attempt at recording the video for this topic. It's not a difficult idea, but the implementation of this idea in Java is made tricky by the fact that Java is so fussy about the private versus public status of its variables. We made some classes recently, and today I want to look at the idea of making a subclass of that class, which in and of itself is not complicated. What's complicated is keeping track of which variables are owned by the sort of master class and which variables are owned by the subclass, and making sure that you understand how to access those variables from the outside. And I started trying to do a video using our example of a car, which remember had methods for driving and refueling and that kind of stuff. But there were so many instance variables and so many methods, and we had overloaded the constructor so much, so it got kind of messy. And I decided to go back to the first example we did, which was an example of a class that is an album, a musical album. And it only had 4 instance variables: a year, artist, a title, and a rating, how many stars you give it. And we had a constructor where you pass the new album constructor, the year, the artist, the title, the rating. And we had get and set methods for our class, and that was pretty much it. And the only method we had that did something was a print method that printed out the contents of that album. Now I want to think about taking the class of an album and thinking about different types of albums that might have different sorts of instance variables. For example, when we say an album, we're speaking of just a collection of music, right? But if you're collecting albums, you could have vinyl records, you could have CDs, you could have cassette tapes, if you're as old as I am, or you could have digital music files, which even nobody really has that anymore, right? Most people just listen to their music from a streaming service. But let's assume that we're collecting our music in some way, either in physical form as LP records, or in digital form as just a collection of, say, MP3 files or such on your hard drive. Both a LP record of the example I used for my album was 1989 by Taylor Swift. Okay. If you've got the vinyl record, it's got an artist and a date and a title and a rating. And if you've got a digital file of that record on your computer, that digital album also has a date and an artist and a title and a rating. So those are shared by any album object. But if you've got, say, a vinyl record has some properties that a digital music file doesn't have. For example, the number of discs in the record. It could be a single disc or 2 disc or 4 disc set. The speed of the record. What speed does it spin on the turntable? Most LP records are 33 or 33 and a third RPMs. A digital music file has properties that a vinyl record doesn't have. It's got a bit rate. At what bit rate, how many kilobits per second was the music encoded? A higher bit rate is higher quality sound. Or a file size. How big is the file in megabytes on your computer, or gigabytes if it's a really, really high quality audio file. So we can have 2 subclasses of the album class, one that I'll call digital and the other that I'll call vinyl. And these subclasses have their own properties. So they all have the shared properties of an album: title, date, artist, rating. But they also have their own instance variables that are unique to the subclass. So this is how I create a subclass. I'm going to go over here to my other files. If we peek in our window here, I've got 2 extra files. I've got my album class, where I define the album, but now I've got a digital class, which is a subclass of album. And this is the magic word to make a subclass. If you've already got a class called album, you say that the public class digital extends album. A digital album is an extension of an album. It is a subclass of album. So a digital music file is an album, but it is a subclass of album that has some of its own properties that are unique. For example, I've given it 2 unique instance variables: bit rate, how many kilobits per second is the music encoded at, and a size, how big is the actual music file in megabytes, let's say. So I've done the same thing for a vinyl record. Okay, I've given, and let me take some of this stuff out because we're going to do this all later. I've given the vinyl album subclass two of its own instance variables. They're integers. One is the number of discs in the album, and the other is the speed of the LP, which is nobody has the little tiny records that run at 45 RPM anymore, but just to give it something that's an integer. I just wanted to have an integer. So the speed of an LP record is 33 RPMs. And again, the way I create the class is to say the class called vinyl extends an album. A vinyl is a type of album. A vinyl record is a type of album. So album is the class, vinyl is the subclass. Okay? Now, how do we create a new digital album versus a new just regular album? Here's my constructor for the album class. I give it 4 variables: a year, an artist, a title, and a rating, and it puts those 4 variables into the instance variables of the album. I need to do the same thing for a digital album. I could create a new constructor that has the year, the artist, the title, the rating. If I try to do that, though, I'll run into a bit of a problem. Here is my constructor. Okay, I should put a comment here. Constructor for the digital subclass of the album class. And I'm trying to do, it's considered good Java form to make the names of your classes capitalized, so I'm trying to do that. And so these are the things that I need to give a digital album in order to initialize it: a year, an artist, a title, a rating, a bit rate, and a size. Okay, the year, artist, title, and rating are variables that belong to the class album, and the bit rate and size are variables that belong to the subclass digital. And I could just go to my album class and copy these like so, and then just add the ones for my digital album. I would need to say bitrate equals new bitrate, the name that I gave to the parameter that gets passed to the class, and then what was the other one? Size equals new size, the name of the parameter up here. You see that I pass to the constructor. If I try to do this, I will get an error. I'm not going to run it now because I'll get a bunch of errors. But I will tell you right now that if I try to do this, I will get an error. Why will I get an error? Because even though the digital class is a subclass of album, these variables are private to the album class. And I can't assign them values from the subclass. That's the whole point of private variables, is you can only get at them from inside the class. I could get at them by using set and get methods. I could say set year. I could say set year, new year. I could do that. Right? Because that's telling the album class, hey, set your year to this variable that I was just given. But I can't do it directly. That's not allowed. Rather than using set methods, though, I'm going to do something a little trickier. I'm going to copy a bunch of comments from over here. So this is my constructor for the album class. It takes 4 attributes, for the digital subclass of the album class. It takes 4 attributes of the album class and then 2 of its own, bit rate and size. It can't just assign those album-owned attributes to those variables because those variables are private. If we look at our album class, Okay, all of these variables of the album class, year, artist, title, and rating, are private variables. That means I can't set them from the outside without using a set method. I can't access them. I can't change them from the outside. But what I can do instead is in my constructor for the digital class, call the constructor of the regular album class. So when I call the digital constructor, I give it 6 variables, and I'll say, these 4 variables that belong to album, call the album's constructor, and now these 2 variables that belong to me, I'll assign those inside the subclass. The magic word for doing that is super. What does super mean in this context? It means call the constructor of the superclass. Album is the superclass, digital and vinyl are the subclasses. So the relationship is, if I'm a class, I have subclasses, those are my subclass. If I'm a subclass and I have a class above me, that's my superclass. So the way I call my constructor for digital is, give it all 6 variables, but take the first 4 of them, new year, I'll go ahead and copy and paste this, new artist, new title, and new rating. And send those variables up the chain of command. To the album class. Okay? So this word super refers to the hierarchy of classes and subclasses. Super refers to the class above you. Okay? So the constructor for digital takes 6 variables as its input, sends 4 of them to the superclass, calls its constructor, and then assigns the last 2, bitrate and size, to its own variables that are private to it. This is something that it breaks my brain a little bit, I think, because I didn't learn object-oriented programming from scratch. And the way I think about objects is, suppose I create an object, a new digital album. I'm a digital album. I am a digital and I'm an album. I inherit the variables of the superclass. If I'm a digital, I have a bitrate and a size, but I also have all of the variables that my superclass has. That's called inheritance in Java. I feel like, me personally, feel like, look, if I inherit those variables, they should be mine. I should be able to do with them whatever I want. That's not how it works. The variables belong to the class. And if those variables are private to album, even though a digital is an album, even though an object that's an instance of the digital class is a subclass of the album class, when I access those variables, because they are private, I have to either do it via set and get methods or by calling the method of my superior class, the class 1 level of structure above me. Okay? So this is how I would create a new digital album. Okay. How do I do it for the vinyl album? Let's go ahead and copy this. I'm actually going to copy the whole thing just so I make sure I don't make a mistake. Here we're going to go to the vinyl class. Where is it? Right here. Okay, and I'm going to create a constructor for the vinyl class. How do I do it? I give it the year, the artist, the title, the rating, the number of discs, and the speed. It takes the first 4 of those and calls the constructor of the superclass album. And I don't have to write album, I can just write super, because Java knows that because I am a subclass of album, album is the superclass of vinyl. And then I can assign my 2 variables, those 2 variables that are unique to the subclass, myself. Okay, so this calls the constructor of the superclass, album, and then I assign the other 2 variables, number of discs and speed, myself. Okay? Now, I'm a little worried when I run this, I'll still get an error. And the reason I'm worried is because I have some other methods in here that, that I haven't fully fleshed out yet. So let me go ahead and click the Save button. Let me go back to myprogram.java and run it and see if I still get an error. I think I will because I've got some other methods in here and I might have to comment them out. Oh, no, it works. Okay. So right now I've only got one album. It's Taylor Swift's 1989. I create it here. I give it all these parameters, and then I print out the parameters by calling the print album method. Now let's create a digital album since I have a new class. How do I do that? I say digital equals, digital, and then the name, I'll call it my favorite MP3 equals new digital. And then I have to give it a list of parameters. What are the parameters that a digital album has? It has a date, an artist, a title, a rating. Those all get passed up to the album class, and then it has the bit rate and the size. I'm going to just come over here and copy this because I don't want you to watch me type this and make mistakes in all the quotes and stuff. Paste. Okay, so digital, my favorite MP3 is new digital, date 2022, artist Taylor Swift, album title Midnights, 4 stars, 96 kilobytes per second, 43.5 megabytes on your hard drive. Okay, so that should create a new object that is an instance of the digital subclass. Okay, did it do it? Who knows? Because I didn't ask it to print anything about the digital album. I have to say, my favorite MP3 is the name of my new object, my digital object, print album. Boop, boop, oops, I hit the caps lock key in there. ALBUM, parentheses, run. Uh-oh. Why doesn't it work? Why doesn't it work? Good question. Well, I haven't defined a print album method for the my favorite MP3 for the digital class. Right? I have a print album method for the album class. If we go to album.java, I've got a, where is it? Print album method. But I don't have a print album method for my digital class. So let's make one. I'm a little confused why it doesn't run the method of the superclass, but I think I know why. We'll explain the nitty-gritty of that in a separate video. My favorite MP3.print album. So let's go to the album.java and let's look at the print album method. I could just copy this and paste it into digital album. Let's actually just do that. There's my digital.java. Down here, yeah. Oh, it does have a print album method. It just doesn't do anything because I didn't comment it out. Let's take this out. That was dumb. Remember I said there are a lot of changes I make in here and it's hard for me to go back and do it from scratch. So this is the digital album without its own print method. Now let's run the program. There it is. Notice it prints the title. This is the second album, the digital album. The title of the album by Taylor Swift, released 2022, 4 stars. But it doesn't print the other variables that are unique to the digital album. It doesn't print the bit rate and it doesn't print the size. But it does just run the regular method of the album class. The album class just doesn't know about size and bit rate. It doesn't know about these other instance variables that only belong to digital albums. So now I'm going to create a unique print album method for the digital album. System print line title by artist so and so, released on so and so, and I need to add. And again, I'm copying this so you don't have to watch me struggle through typing all of this text. I'm going to add system out print size in megabytes, and I don't need this bitrate audio file. Okay, so I'm going to print all the regular stuff that's in an album, and then print the size, and then the bitrate, and just some words to make it look tidy. What happens if I run this? I should get an error. And it's going to be because, there you go. What's my error over here? If you can read that, title has private access and album, artist has private access and album, year has private access and album. In my method here, I'm trying to print variables that don't belong to my class. They belong to the object. The digital object, my favorite MP3, is an album. But this class that's trying to do something with that data doesn't own title, artist, year, or rating. So I can't do this. I can't print these variables. Now I could use get, say get title, get artist, get year, and then print those. But I'm going to do the same thing I did before, which is instead of getting those variables directly, I'm just going to call the print method of the album class with the super keyword. Super.printAlbum. So this calls the print album method of the album superclass, one level above me in the class hierarchy. So this will run, if we switch over to the album class, it will run, where is it? This, the print album method of album, the album class. And it will print the title, artist, etc. And then, when it's done doing that, it will come back to this method. I keep scrolling and losing it right here. After it calls the print album superclass method, it will then print the size and the bit rate and then end. Okay, now when I run it, those errors should go away if I didn't make any mistakes. There you go. And now you see when it prints out the information about a digital album, it prints the title, the artist, the release date, the number of stars, the size in megabytes, and the bit rate, just like I told it to do. Where is it? Size in megabytes and the bit rate. So now there are two different print album methods. One that belongs to the class album and one that belongs to the subclass digital. And they do slightly different things, even though they have the same name. That is a name in Java. It's called polymorphism. Polymorphism refers to the fact that Java lets you have methods with the same name in different classes and subclasses that do different things. Polymorphism means many shapes. Right? So Java lets you have classes and subclasses with a method that has the same name but does slightly different things. That's called polymorphism. Okay? Fancy name for a fairly simple idea. Okay? Let's do the same thing to our vinyl record class. Okay, if we go to our vinyl record class, what do we need? We've got the constructor. Well, actually, let's create a vinyl record. We haven't done that yet. So let's go back to our main program and create a new vinyl object. Vinyl, my favorite LP. Okay, LP, long playing vinyl record, equals new. Vinyl is the name of the subclass, and I'm calling the constructor of the subclass. What do I need to pass it? The date, the artist, the title, the rating. That's what albums want. Right? Those 4 instance variables. And then the 2 instance variables that are unique to a vinyl record, which were number of discs and speed. Okay? Again, I'm going to save you watching me type and just type that all out. Okay. Sticking with the Taylor Swift theme, my favorite LP record, released in 2024, Taylor Swift's Tortured Poets Department. 2 stars, 2 discs. I got the special. I don't really have this on vinyl. The special edition 33 RPM record. Okay, and then let's try to print that. Let's go to vinyl and make sure there's no print method. Okay, there is no print method for the vinyl subclass. Does that mean I can't print the information about my favorite LP? No. It means that if I call my favorite LP.printAlbum, what I get, and so these are my 3 albums, 1989, Midnights, and Tortured Poets Department. If I run my program, I get information for all 3 of them. I get information for my favorite album, for my favorite MP3, and my favorite LP. But notice that it doesn't print out the number of discs and the speed. Why? Because those only belong to the subclass. What is this really calling now? It's calling the generic print album method that the vinyl subclass has inherited from its superclass. Okay. If I don't give it its own version of that method, it inherits the method of its superclass. So right now, a vinyl record doesn't have its own print album method. But because it's an album, because it's a subclass of the album, if I call its print album method, it just inherits the one from its superclass. If I want it to have its own, I have to write its own. Okay. And again, I'm just gonna. Have I done that yet? I'm just trying to copy and paste to save you guys some time. Okay, let's write it. Okay. Public void print album. The public means I can access it from outside the subclass. The void means it doesn't return anything, it just does stuff. Okay, what do I do first? I call the print album method of the superclass. Okay, as a vinyl album, my superclass is album. And it does that. And then it also prints the number of discs and the speed and RPMs. Now, when I run the same program, now when I call the print album method, notice it prints the discs and the RPM. The vinyl album has its own version of the print album methods that's different from the one that album has and different from the one that digital has. They're all called print album, but they all do something slightly different. Again, that's called polymorphism, many different versions of that print album class. Okay. There's a word for doing this that I believe, and some of this object-oriented programming vocabulary is really, I'm giving you guys another video to watch, which is just like all the vocabulary of object-oriented programming, but it's called overriding. The print album method of vinyl overrides the print album method of its super class with the same name. Okay. So when you've got a class with subclasses, if you've got some method that only the class has and not the subclass, the subclasses inherit that method. They have it too, and they will run it just like the superclass does. But if your subclass has its own version of it, that version overrides the version of the superclass. So we'll always go to the version that most closely belongs to the object, which in this case, the object, if we go back to my program.java, my favorite LP is an object of the vinyl class. So when I call print album, if it has one of those, it uses that one. If it doesn't have one of those, it goes one level up and it looks for one that's inherited up the subclass chain of command, or chain of ownership, if you want to think about it that way. Okay? So that is classes and subclasses, polymorphism, okay, having different methods with the same name, inheritance. If you are a subclass, you inherit all the instance variables and methods of your superclass, and overriding. If you've got a method that's unique to you, that your superclass has one of the same name, the subclass's method overrides the method of the superclass. That's a lot of vocabulary for what seems like a pretty simple idea. Now, there are a couple things I haven't done here. I haven't done set and get methods for my subclasses. I just want to do something really quick here. Suppose I wanted to change the rating of my favorite LP. Okay. My favorite LP was Midnight. Oh, sorry, it was Tortured Poets Department. I gave it a 2-star rating. Suppose I decide, I don't really like that album very much. I want to change its rating to 1 star. Can I do that? No, I absolutely can't do that. I'll get an error if I try to do that because rating is private. Okay? Rating has private access in album. I have to use set method. Set rating to 1.0. Does that give an error? No, it doesn't. Oh, wait. Oh, I deleted the print statement. I didn't get an error, though. Let's set it and then print my favorite LP. Let's print it out. Favorite LP. Now, the third thing that it prints out should be Tortured Poets Department with a 1-star rating. It worked. Okay. Why am I surprised it worked? Because I didn't write set methods for vinyl or get methods for vinyl. If I go to my vinyl subclass, there are no set and get methods. So what is happening when I call the set method, let's go back to our program, set rating to a vinyl LP? What is it calling? It's calling the set method of the superclass. So I don't have to write set methods for title, date, artist, or rating for the subclasses. I only have to write set and get methods for those variables that are unique. The subclass inherits the set and get methods of the superclass. If I tried to set the number of disks to something different, I forget what I called that variable. Let's go to vinyl, num disks. If I tried to set that to 4, I'd get an error. Why? Because there is no number of disk set method. I didn't write it. There's nothing to inherit, and there's no method to call. Cannot find symbol. Oh, I should be set num disks. It's still going to be an error because I did not make any such method. Okay. If I want set and get methods for those unique variables, cannot find symbol set number disk, I have to write them. So if I go to vinyl, I can create set methods and get methods. Where's my class? I would have to go to my vinyl class and create those set and get methods. Okay? I won't do that right now. I'll do that separately if we ever come back to this video. Okay? So it's a lot of new ideas. I think I'm also going to do a subclass example with cars and go through that a little more quickly, just not focusing on the code, focusing on the ideas of inheritance, polymorphism, etc.